Hello there, it is Caroline or Miss B Overseas, and I'm here today to tell you about the books that I completed within the month of September. This month I was able to start and finish a grand total of 5 books, which may not sound like a whole heck of a lot, but I'm considering that a win for me, especially with the startup of school, so giant pat on the back. I also finished A Song of Wraiths and Ruin at the beginning of the month, but I said pretty much, I think, everything I wanted to say during my August wrap up about that one. And then I also started 3 or 4 different audiobooks and finished none of them. And I don't think I'm gonna include any of those in the wrap up today. I'll just include them in future months wrap ups when I'm actually able to finish them. I'm going to start a little bit in reverse with the last books that I completed this month, and those include these 3 books, which I read for the Buzzword Readathon, where we were reading books with night in the title. By now, I think that my Buzzwordathon vlog should be up, so if you want super in-depth thoughts and reviews, you can go and watch that. But just in case you don't want to watch like my life in between me telling you about the books, I'll just super shortly and sweetly wrap them up right now. The first book that I read for Buzzwordathon was The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. This is told from the perspective of a teenage boy who has Asperger's syndrome, who, while trying to solve a mystery, discovers more about his family. There were several things in here that made me wonder about the kind of research that the author did regarding Asperger's syndrome, which I was able to find out that he did basically no research, and I think that this is evident in the perspective that he wrote. I think that there were some things that were inaccurate and skewed and potentially quite harmful. Moral of the story, read and support Own Voices authors, and this was 2 stars. The second book that I read and completed during the week-long readathon was The Night Diary by Vera Herron-Andani. This is a middle grade historical fiction that is written from the perspective of a young girl living in India during the time of its partitioning, and we're seeing diary entries that she's writing to her mother. I said this during my vlog, but middle grade just always makes me emotional, especially when the characters are going through extremely difficult and harrowing things. I think the author did a great job at including the history of it and also at capturing the middle grade voice. I already recommended this to all of my students, and I really do not like doing decimals for my star ratings, but I think what I'm gonna mark this one at, my final rating, is gonna be 3.75 out of 5 stars. There were just some things that I wanted more from, particularly in regards to the perspectives of other characters. And the finale book for both the readathon and my reading month in September was The Night Watchman by Louise Erdrich. This is adult historical literary fiction, and it's also Indigenous owned voices. The author wrote this sort of inspired by the life of her grandfather, and this book does so much, but we're essentially following several different characters' lives, all of whom either live or are related to the Turtle Mountain Band reservation in South Dakota. You get third-person omniscient narration, you get beautiful writing, you get chapters that ingrain themselves into your brain and play themselves on a loop over and over and over again. I am so grateful to Buzzwordathon for being the push I needed to pick this up. I highly recommend this, and now I want to read more from this author just to surround myself in their writing, and I am giving this one a brilliant and bold 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, and then moving on to the 2 books I read not during that week of Buzzwordathon. The first one being It Came from the Sky by Chelsea Sidoti. This is a fairly new release, and it is YA contemporary with some light science fiction sprinkled throughout. It's also told in mixed media format. So it looks really big, but it goes by super quick. I think I read the first half of this in like one sitting. This book takes place in a small town, and at the beginning of the story, there are two brothers who are in high school, and they are conducting this science experiment on their family's farm that ends up going terribly wrong. In order to cover up what they did, they tell this lie, and basically that one small lie leads to another small lie, and it keeps building up, and the lie essentially spirals into these two brothers convincing the entirety of their small town that their town is being invaded by aliens. This book had so many things that I loved. The small town setting, the light alien sci-fi-ness of it all, the tiniest bit of teen angst was in there, and it also, I think, had some really interesting conversations about like how far people will go to tell a lie and extend a lie, and then also on the flip side of that, how far people will go to believe and blindly follow a lie. There's also some commentary on like multi-level marketing schemes in here and cults, and they kind of parallel that to these two brothers convincing their town that they're going to be invaded by aliens. I feel like the mixed media was a really cool way to tell the story. It's in mixed media because one of the brothers is essentially making a file on this social experiment that he's conducting. For all of these things that this book did right, at about the 75% mark in the book, there's this plot point that's introduced way late in the game to this side character that I just felt was not well handled and super unnecessary. It's essentially, I'm trying to think of how to word it. I mean, at the very least, it's an adult manipulating a minor, and everything else was left super ambiguous. It kind of just got thrown at the audience and was very shocking, and then it was never really brought up or discussed again. And I just felt like the author either should have done it in a way where it was discussed and the ramifications for the adult who was manipulating this minor were discussed, or it should have just been lifted right out entirely, because it really added nothing to the story. And I feel like it was almost a last minute add-in for shock factor, which I don't think is right at all. So for all of these things that this book did right, it was like a 4 or 5 star read until that was introduced, and that knocked it down to like 3.5. And the last book that I have to talk to you about today is If You Come Softly by Jacqueline Woodson. This is the 20th year anniversary of its publication, so it got this new beautiful cover, and it also includes a author's note from Jacqueline Woodson at the beginning, kind of explaining that when she got the idea to write this story, she was thinking of Romeo and Juliet, and who Romeo and Juliet would be during this modern time period. So that being said, it focuses on the first love between these two teenagers, Jeremiah and Ellie. Jeremiah is a young black teen boy, and Ellie is a young Jewish girl, and they both meet at this school, private school that they go to, and the private school is very affluent, predominantly white, and Jacqueline Woodson crafts the plot so that it does focus in on their relationship and them falling in love and experiencing being in love for the first time, but she also incorporates the separate characters and the relationships that they have with their family and how that affects their relationships with each other. Listen, this book made me honestly mad at myself that it had been out for 20 years and I had not read it until this month. I'm not sure why this book affected me. so profoundly, but it did. I don't know if you ever think this to yourself, but like if you could make a required reading list for the world, I feel like this book would definitely be on my required reading list. The innocence that Woodson captures in Jeremiah and Ellie's relationship was so endearing. And what I really noticed and really appreciated that Woodson did is that obviously a lot of the plot centers around the ramifications that these two teenagers experience, the boy being black and the girl being white. And what I thought was so important that Jacqueline Woodson did, particularly in regards to Ellie's family, is that no one in her family at any point in the book is outrightly or overtly racist. But there are these microaggressions that come up in the thoughts and actions and conversations that Ellie has with her family that really dig in, and you can see how those microaggressions play out and affect the relationship. Jacqueline Woodson's writing just, I don't even know how to describe it. It does something to me where I have like very physical reactions. I can feel the joy and feel the pain when she writes it. Her words like trail up from the page and come up your arms and then like wrap themselves around the reader. There's this one scene in particular, and it's about Maya or Jeremiah. He has like just come home from school, and he's alone in his mother's apartment, and he's sitting in her bedroom and he's looking around the room at pictures of his parents and his family members and him with his family. And Jacqueline Woodson writes from his perspective where he is looking at these pictures of his family and he's thinking about how he loves them and he knows that he is loved by them and that he is still so lonely. I don't know why, but that scene, that chapter is going to stick with me for years. 4 years. If you cannot already tell, I highly recommend this story. I recommend you read it. I recommend you share it, particularly with young people. This is definitely one of those stories that I wish that I had when I was younger. If I haven't made it already clear, 5 out of 5 stars. And that's all the books that I read in the month of September. A banner reading month, if I do say so myself. Let me know what you read in the month of September. Let me know if anything I said about any of these books intrigued you. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic day.